Hey everybody, we're live here. If you don't know what's going on, it's not my typical night. What's going on here is a panel because there's some poop going down in Canada. And these are all lovely, fine Canadians. So, and a bunch of podcasters too, and breeders. Like we've got a whole table of awesomeness right in here. What's going on right now is there is a, how do I word this? A group. That's how I'm going to word this. A group who's trying to push an agenda to have exotics, not just reptiles, banned in Prince Edward Island, which is very close to where I'm at, which means if they get banned there, my province will follow suit. Very, very, very likely. So we're just going to talk about the ins and outs of this, what we can do to help, why we should help, and yeah, go from there. If everybody can just give a quick introduction, who they are. Dillon, you're beside me. Wait this way.
Sure. My name is Dillon Perron, and I am the host of the Animals at Home podcast. And if you just search Animals at Home, you'll find me on YouTube. Mostly a podcast, but there's some links in the description as well.
I'm Brandon Milchamp, and I co-host Canadian Herpetoculture podcast. We have a YouTube channel, but we don't really do too much clips.
I'm Ashley. I'm the owner of Northern Lights Reptile Imports, and I don't know. I like reptiles. And
like reptiles. I mean, I would hope we all do here.
I'm Keanna Fox. I'm the other co-host of the podcast.
I'm Vanan, also known as Vanan, from Canadian Amphiphile, snake breeder. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we kind of agreed that we'd start this off just by glancing at the article. Let me share the screen. I will read the story. Gather round. Children, I have a tale for you. So they're asking to help ban exotic pets. And an animal welfare group is urging people on Prince Edward Islands to use a provincial survey, which the questionnaire is in the link below, to share their input on snakes, lizards, frogs, parrots. They're also including rodents, like anything that's not a dog or a cat. They're even including cows, cattle, like all that stuff. And it's actually the World Animal Protection Society or something. It's a global organization that would like to see a ban on amphibians, reptiles, parrots being kept as pets. If I'm going too fast, just someone tell me to slow down, really.
Is there actually something in there about farm animals as well?
In the questionnaire.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, gotcha.
The questionnaire mentioned.
Just to kind of throw people off, I think. I don't know. They left right at the end.
Yeah. Talking about them being wild animals, needing specialized environments in order to thrive. I mean, we know they need specialized environments, but I'm not getting into that. Professional zoological institutions. So, I mean, one of their arguments here, don't recognize glass as a barrier. It's vague and hard to enforce. I mean, they're kind of going crazy here. They've also are trying to get animals out of like PetSmarts situations, pet stores, which I mean, buy from a breeder. And these guys are fabulous. East Coast Exotics. They're a feeder company in PEI. You know, they've been talking about it as well. I mean, there's not many people who support the ban here. But what people don't realize is this could affect keeping fish, keeping, you know, something as simple as a hamster. It's not just reptiles. So, and where I live here in the Maritimes, PEI is part of that. And if one province is going to do it, the other are going to follow suit. So,
well, I know that one of the current concerns in the reptile hobby is Ontario. What Ontario could do with Bill 136, because that is going to set the standard for what all the other provinces do for law. So, you know, what actions certain provinces take really do affect. exotic bank, and that doesn't just include reptiles.
Yeah. You kind of cut out there a little bit, Keanna.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I was like,
Like,
I felt kind of like I was on like, the Peanuts show.
Your audio is a little wacky.
I mean, we are a little wacky over here on this channel, but it happens.
Generally, what Keanna was trying to say was just that what affects that one province could easily spread like wildfire across the country to other provinces too.
Oh, it's a domino effect. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially with a few provinces already that were trying to implement something like this, right? In Ontario, just before COVID came through, or is coming through, we were dealing with that in Ontario too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just blanked here. I'm tired. I'm very tired. Sorry, my kids were up all night. And this is all last minute. Usually I'm prepared. Like, this is like, let's get this done.
It's good to kind of draw that parallel with the aquarium hobby in a lot of ways, because just by sheer number of species, just by the level of expertise, care with some species, just by the differentiation between some being readily available pet store species and some being special species, there's a lot of parallels that we can draw here. And if they want to take on the exotics and the reptiles, they're going to have to look at that aspect too, because even in the wild-caught exotic trade, fish are the most wild-caught harvested animal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's a high mortality rate with fish too, because especially in transport.
With that, yeah. So I've seen this happen in a lot of places, and the only way it even passes is when they don't get to hear this other side of it. We were in Abbotsford when we had a hearing for a bylaw that was trying to ban all exotics. Basically, the wording was all exotics. And then we went to tell them, like, hey, all exotics means your hamsters, your budgies, And so then we helped them draw up a list, right? So any blanket ban, in the absence of the opposition or the other voice, can go through, but as long as there's someone, there's a group or somebody to speak up, that they'll listen to, that like, hey, this is without regulation, damn near impossible to enforce.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where just by reading the way they propose the law, you can tell that it's written by someone who does not know exactly what they're writing about. And so exactly what Vanan is saying is like, it's actually important that the hobby comes to the table in these scenarios and actually helps the policymakers, because it's like, tell us exactly what you're trying to stop here, because right. I guarantee you it's not goldfish, it's not budgies, it's probably not leopard geckos and bearded dragons. But if you sort of describe to us what it is you're trying to ban, maybe the hobby can help that as well, and say, look, there's a few species that for sure you could probably ban. There's some things that people probably don't need. But when it's a party that has no idea how the hobby works, they just write exotics and they think that that's all they need, but it's very vague and confusing.
That's why it's so important not to blow something like this off, is so that people kind of learn and like realize, like, oh yeah, there is a lot more to it than just that.
Yeah. And I mean, seeing that one of the things that's brought up is they bring things out of the pet stores, I can kind of agree with that point. Keep it to the breeders. Go to the breeders to buy your animal instead of having it sitting there in the pet store, because we all know pet store information, guys.
A lot of them are like,
I have to be devil's advocate with this, because I think we do have to play the middle ground with including the commercial aspect being the bigger pet stores that probably go through more animals than most breeders do. The wholesale trade business in Canada is vast, and that is a big part of this secondary community, right? So I don't think it's good to completely omit them and say that they shouldn't be a part of this. I think they also need that education. Of course, chains don't listen to Joe Blow walking down the street and saying, hey, I breed some leopard geckos and you need to listen to me. But if there is a front, there's a bigger organization, there's a bigger voice that can, I mean, we say this all the time, that it needs to be a group that needs to be like a USARC or something like that. Coordination is an issue, but I roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't think it's healthy long term to omit pet stores, even chain pet stores.
Oh, for sure. Like even if they had like a multiple choice questionnaire for new buyers, that's a big plus. Instead of just like, oh, here you go.
Or referral system, like just outsource the information. It doesn't have to be all under PetSmart brochures. Maybe just go like, hey, these are other links which are already out there, but.
So All Canadian Reptile Girl, is there a reptile advocacy, I can't talk today, group in Canada that can help keepers get the word out, like USARC in the States? I reached out to one of them I found online, but looks like they have shut down. As far as I know, and you guys can probably correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't.
There was two, there is two, but nobody wants to support it properly because no one really thinks this is a real issue.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a whole plethora of stuff going on right now down in the States, which I'm not going to get into.
I mean, their proof it works in the States, the use park situation.
Yeah. And people like to play well, it doesn't affect me right now, so why should I care about it? Because it could affect you. It might not be right now, but it could be in 6 months, could be next year, it could be 2 years from now. Sometimes these things can happen in 28 days. Sometimes they take years to develop. And sometimes they've already been in development for years, and we just don't know about it because it's done behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So in this case, we're lucky enough that we got notice of a survey because here in Alberta, we've had the dart frog ban where they're just like, oh, all of a sudden dart frogs are banned.
That was almost overnight.
Yeah.
So we didn't get any warning about it. It's just like, here's the change and that's it. So when they did reverse the dart frog ban after some people discussed it with the government because they got biologists involved and other people, not just hobbyists, saying, hey, you can't take our snakes and our frogs and all that kind of stuff, because they don't care about just one person. They care about people who look organized, and that plays a big factor.
Yeah.
Was that the one that was done in 28 days?
That was a municipal ban up in Fort Mac. So that happened in the fall of 2019, and they passed it really fast. So they banned all snakes under a certain size. Never mind, it wasn't size. It was Boidae and Pythonidae. So you can't have any boas or pythons in that town. And there's no grandfather clause. So the people that are there with the animals already are giving them to rescues. They are dumping animals, and they're trying to get rid of them because they're worried about the repercussions. So stuff like this, where they're worried about welfare of the animals, people are dumping animals. People are getting rid of them in mass numbers. That does not help animal welfare whatsoever. That makes those animals' lives a lot worse because they're dumping them in parks. They're just getting rid of them, and that's not fair to the animals.
Yeah. And that's absolutely point here that Jess is making. The incident with the rock python and the children in New Brunswick really did a lot of damage to the hobby in the Maritimes. So, I mean, you're taking that, and then you're taking now something else that's coming to light in the media that people are pushing. That could do a lot of damage here. You know what I mean? And I say come to light, I mean like this group is going to the media. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of these groups, they pick about the bad parts of what they see because they have an agenda of what they want, and they're just going to pick apart things to suit their narrative. They don't always show both sides.
Well, and that's the one thing to remember with this article is that this is not a government proposing legislation. This is the World Animal Protection approaching the government. And World Animal Protection, I call them WAP. I don't know if they appreciate that, but they are PETA, right? They are anti-pet to the core. So when they say ban all exotics, they're not messing around with that term. They know exactly what that means. They don't want anybody to own pets, so they're happy to use a broad stroking term. And if they approach the government looking, like Brandon's saying, looking organized, saying this is what we want, if we don't show up as well, then it's very easy for the government to look at this big organization and go, yeah, they're probably right, exotics are crazy, nobody should be owning those.
Yeah. And the worst part, though, after exotics, let's say it went through there and go after dogs and cats.
Yeah.
Affects everybody.
Yeah. And that's my worry. Like, if we don't come out to play and show our side of things, they're just going to take the word of this other organization.
Yeah.
Right.
I understand the fact that they're trying to advocate for animal welfare, but they're not doing it in the right manner. because banning all species and saying that they all should stay in the wild doesn't necessarily help, because a lot of agriculture is just taking down a lot of these animals' habitats. So they don't have a lot of places to live anymore because they're just tearing it down, planting palm oil or whatever that they're looking to do. So a lot of these wild animals don't have homes anymore. And having them in captivity is nice, but it doesn't really solve the problem. So if we're just banning them completely, it doesn't necessarily help.
Well, pretty much you're giving the animal an extinction notice at that point, because the deforestation keeps going even if they ban captivity. You know, there's no more lifeline for the species at that point.
Can you check on Dean, please? He's screaming. And it's kind of excuse my children screaming in the background. Usually I do this later when they're napping or in bed. I have 3. And it's funny because I know, Ashley, you guys had just posted about something that's becoming Sites 3, the Cuban False chameleons, which I actually own, and their numbers are depleting massively in the wild. And that's part of the reason why they're becoming like that. Like, we also can't get them to breed in captivity. I mean, we're all working on that still. But I mean, if it wasn't like, where would these guys go if we didn't have breeders? You know, people keeping in captivity.
That's the thing that really is annoying about these anti-pet groups is they just cut the pet industry off at the knees without asking the question, at what cost? And that's actually an important question to ask. Is like, what if you removed all of the pet industry? What does that do? And so as far as I could tell, if you approach an anti-pet group and said, can you list the positives of the pet industry? They would say, no, we can't, which tells you that they haven't actually done any research into it. They just have an idea that they're possessed by, that they're going after. You know, when you're trying to argue for something, you need to at least look at the other side and say, yes, we want to get rid of the pet industry. We do see a few positives here, but we feel like, you know, it's better to just get rid of it entirely and sacrifice these positives. Our job is to highlight the positives and make sure they're very clear to the public who don't even own reptiles, and say, these are the reasons why we think owning reptiles is important for society. Even if you never want to own a reptile in your life, it's better that society is allowed to own them than not.
Exactly. It also helps, like, in terms of, let's just say with, like, World Animal Protection likes to go at morphs and stuff. But you know what? In the end, it helps people destigmatize the scariness in them, right? So the general public be like, oh, that's actually really nice. It's not that scary. And in the end, it's beneficial to just have them in captivity. And people can learn and not want them to die out in the wild either.
And also with a lot of captive animals, people feel that personal reaction when they see a lot of these reptiles and other stuff in, like, say, zoos and stuff. They feel more of a connection. So they're more prone to donating to conservation to help save these animals, because they don't just see them on TV and don't give a shit.
Yep.
Agreed.
I don't know how they plan to attack the whole pet industry. And I really feel like companion animals seem to be a little bit more held in a different classification, because, you know, it can't show you love back, it can't show you emotions back, you know, and that's where these exotics fall under the easily targeted category of the, like, well, there's no human back and forth interaction, they don't need us to survive, and so on and so forth, right? But, you know, again, like, going back to fish too, it is not so much that, and going a little deeper into this too about why we keep pets to begin with, it's not necessarily just the way an animal shows affection like a dog or cat would, but just the fact that we can care for something non-human, which that's a part of us being human. So I don't see that being taken away, because that's just a human nature, you know, it's a human part of us. But the reason why it's so easy to attack exotics and all these other animals is because of, I feel, it's lack of information. And like you guys said too, like, you know, just like they only see what's on documentaries here and there. They don't realize the other aspect. Well, these things can actually live in your living room given these parameters and this setups and so on and so forth. You know, and there's not it. I want to say the hobby is new, but it isn't. The reptile hobby isn't new, but it's very. We seem to be fighting the stigma based on fear. Especially on my end of things, is like, you know, snakes or anyone who breeds spiders, for example, are, you know, always dealing with that stigma over that that they can hurt us. Well, so can a dog. I mean, like or a horse, but that fear seems to be the driving factor. And I feel like in cases like this, where someone's trying to propose a bylaw or something towards government, if you point out that this is coming from a very unfair human perspective with fear behind it, it can kind of shift it in our favor, because it gets people to understand that there's more at play here.
Yep.
Than just the fact that, these are wild animals and we got to save them in the wild and stuff. I mean, it's skewed. This perspective is very skewed based on ignorance and fear.
Yeah.
Imagine if this didn't even exist, in terms of keeping reptiles or other exotics, fish, whatever it may be. We would have no idea about them, other than, hey, they're in the wild. You see them occasionally. You don't know what they do. There'll be a mystery basically for everybody.
Yeah, and that mystery wouldn't help us understand how the ecosystem works, because the more we understand how it works, and the more that we want to save it, because it also affects us if we completely destroy the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I discovered, or I think are the 4 main positives of the hobby, and you guys might have more than just 4, but the first is introducing people to wildlife. You introduce kids, and a lot of times captive animals are that first experience somebody might have. Tons of biologists and zookeepers and whatnot, their first experience is an animal that was in the hobby, whether that's the reptile hobby or not. Conservation, obviously, like Brandon's just saying, if some breeders donate some proceeds to conservation, but also just raising awareness, and then some captive breeding as well. But captive breeding is a little bit grayer when it comes to conservation. But I would say the most part is raising awareness for the parts of the world that are being damaged. Adding to the scientific literature, I think Ashley was sort of touching on that as well. There's tons of examples of the hobby actually impacting scientific literature, or universities going to keepers and saying, hey, how do you breed these things? We need to breed these in the lab. Can you help us out? So there's tons of examples like that. And then the last one, and sort of Vanan was kind of touching on this as well, is the purpose that somebody gets from having the responsibility of having to care for a being is actually important as well, because that can be the difference between somebody being depressed and anxious and not being fulfilled. If you give them that opportunity to care for an animal, who knows what that does? That ripples through the society. Maybe your neighbor, instead of being a depressed, horrible person, is now a little bit better, and his interactions with everybody in that society are a little bit better. So those are what I think are some of the 4 pillars of the hobby that we want to protect.
Yeah. I actually like how you brought up science, because I think it was Billy at Mutation Creation was talking about how he used to donate, or still does donate, sheds from his snakes to a scientific group or university, and they've actually started mapping the DNA of ball pythons to be able to find morphs linked to certain DNA strands, like different sequences, which I think is really cool. And that's a whole different subject. A few years, DNA my dog, let's DNA my snake. But I mean, they wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for having cows.
Captive breeding, with keepers, just hobbyists or keepers. I mean, people want to compare them to zoos and other organizations that, leave it to those people. Well, I mean, we wouldn't have captive bred Borneo earless monitors if not for a captive breeder. So, and a lot of zoo exhibits, zoo projects are very much actually kept the same way as what most keepers or breeders also do. It's funny, and I don't want to go into this whole rat versus cage debate too, but there's also that's used in zoos too for some species that so it's a vast a broad subject to just kind of pigeonhole it and go target this and that's why it doesn't work. It's bigger than that, and people need to know that that's way bigger than that small perspective.
Yeah,
and I do think that's actually our responsibility as members of the hobby to make those points extremely clear to everybody. And that's why it's we want to have a really good image to I always tell this story that I donate to Amazon Rainforest Conservancy, which is a charity out of Toronto, and when I first approached them to make donations through my channel, they said no. And it's because they didn't want to be associated with somebody in the reptile trade or reptile hobby, because we don't have a great image as far as the mainstream goes. So anything we can do to repair that image is good. So when these, WAP goes to a government legislators, the government will already have, I actually know a lot of people in the hobby and they're great people and they do all these great things for society. But if they don't have those things ready in their mind, then this is going to be, these WAP groups are going to be very compelling when they show up.
Well, the thing is with WAP and all these other groups, they're in the media, they're portraying an image that they want everybody to see. And all the people that keep reptiles and amphibians and all these other exotic animals really well, we kind of sit in the sidelines and kind of hide because we don't want to deal with social media, the backlash, and that kind of stuff. So what they're portraying and primarily seeing is all these big box pet stores that sell somebody a leopard gecko, and then they get another leopard gecko, and they house them together because they don't know any better. Because these big box pet stores are supposed to be experts in what they're selling, because that's what you expect in the first time you are looking for a pet. So I think that's a big problem, is maybe they should start looking at holding these big box pet stores to a higher standard. So to a standard kind of like in the middle ground and to our level. So that way they can provide better welfare for the animals. That's something that they should probably look at, is starting that point for welfare, not just banning the animals.
I think that would be a huge bonus to absolutely everyone that's involved with these animals. Because how often does someone come in saying, "Oh, here's my ball python that's in a glass tank. It won't do this, it won't do that. I'm keeping it the way that the pet store told me." So if we have pet store employees that are giving out better, more informed information, then there's going to be less issues within the hobby itself, because the people in like our online reptile community that go to expos and stuff like that, and that are a little more advanced in their care, we represent the tiniest number of reptiles. Like we're such a small portion.
Your poor audio.
I broke my mic during a recording last week. I'm sorry.
Rude.
I know what you said, though.
It's true what you're saying.
We understood the gist of it.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The mass amount of reptile keepers are people that don't even interact with the hobby really at all. They're just kind of like the birthday gift, leopard gecko, the impulse purchase, and they go home with the pamphlet.
Yeah,
I'm sure we all started that way too.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's actually just bridging that gap to get them over to interact with people who are pushing the hobby forward is what we want. We don't want you to leave your leopard gecko in the basement with the PetSmart brochure next to it and assume that's what it's going to be for the next 5 years until it dies of whatever. We want to bring them over.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard to bridge the gap, because like all these big box pet stores, they pay minimum wage. The employees don't give a crap because they're not getting paid very well, and they're not properly trained because a lot of their policies are outdated from 20 years ago, and they haven't changed since. So I think if pet stores were held to a higher standard than what they are, that would drastically help. Like we have Pisces locally here in Calgary, and it's a big pet store. It's actually the largest pet store in North America, I believe. And they sell animals and reptiles and stuff, but their employees are more trained, have more information, and there's people that specialize in certain departments. So the way that they operate definitely helps, but they also don't have 300 stores.
Yeah,
I think as a also, that we obviously there's the weekends being the bottom of the pyramid where all the new people are coming into it, and the majority are the ones that are first time owners and going to a pet store and picking up all these animals. And I think it's possible that as some of us that are further along the journey, to circle back and still give back and kind of pick up our weak parts, so that we can all, I always looked at it that way. I mean, I look at my weakest points and always strengthen up the weaker points. I don't necessarily always focus on the strong points getting stronger. I always want to go back to what my weak points are and try to bring it back again. And that's where I think if we can pull that aspect, that part of the hobby forward into the next stage, into introducing them to communities, introducing them to groups, introducing them to more knowledgeable keepers, and that could be a part of our responsibility. I feel like it's part of our responsibility, and especially all of us that are present right now. And I'm sure that we all do that to a certain degree too. So it still comes down to awareness, education. It's the two things that I keep, in most situations like this, in a battle versus ignorance. The only way you're gonna win it is with awareness and education.
It's so true. It's like, what's stopping us from, going to PetSmart, Petland, all these places and giving them some information that would lead them to the greater part of the hobby that's advancing? Like, maybe you could give your customers, links to Facebook groups aren't always gold standard, but there's some great ones out there. Maybe every reptile that goes home at PetSmart goes home with a little card that has a Facebook group, and we really encourage you to join this group or something like that.
Really good idea.
But we would have to do that. Like, I would have to go to PetSmart and talk to the manager and say, do you mind if I leave some information? But I don't know why they wouldn't want that.
Go ahead, Brennan.
So with the Alberta Reptile Amphibian Society, they used to do days where they'd go to Petland, PetSmart, and do displays and stuff like that. And it was great to explain to people different species, get them involved, and show them various care techniques. But it still didn't change their policy. So, and I think that's really where it stems down from, is head management's like, nope, nothing's changing, blah, 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 because they don't want to invest the money into changes, or they just don't want to change at all.
I think that's a method, that's a way that we can make that happen, though. But the problem is some of us, and I don't know, some of us are further along in the business side of things or not. But when the suppliers themselves can go and say, hey, you're buying an animal from me, I'm supplying you. Get rid of your care sheets. Get rid of your basic chain store, minimal information. This is my care sheet that goes with these animals, and replace that whole section. I mean, most of us here are somewhere along the way, but there's some of us that are still out there that are actually dealing, they are the ones that are putting all these animals in the box chain store. And some of us know those people too. And I'm not trying to point them out, but it's possible that a group like us could lobby for people like them to kind of put something together so the communication, because it has to go up the chain of ladder, right? I mean, you have
I love that idea.
That's it, so I think it's still possible, but it just has to flow. Information has to go up. And that's the effort here.
Yeah, it's talking to the right people, because we could talk to the store employees or the store manager till we're blue in the face, but they only can do so much because somebody above them has to do something about it. And if they don't want to, they're not going to.
Yeah. Sorry about my really super unprofessional headphones. Like, it was bothering me hanging them just by my glasses, so I had to put them back in the Spider-Man headband. I'm really sorry. I'm supposed to be professional over here.
Hey, it looks good.
Yeah. So, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, why it's so important when these things come out to fight it, talk about it, have the conversations. I know around here a lot of people think it's not going to go through. Like, I'm not going to give it any attention. Things like that. Like, why should we give this attention? Why should we fight this? That's what I want to discuss, so we can kind of like maybe change some minds.
Well, if we don't talk about it, we don't discuss it, and we don't bring attention to it within the hobby or the community, all sorts, because this covers a lot of exotic animals, they're just going to bulldoze over us and not going to care at all. So if we don't talk about it and we don't start doing something about it, they're going to do what they want. And obviously their agenda is what they've already stated.
And I mean, I want every reptile keeper to be able to defend their position for keeping reptiles. And I think most of us can't. Most of us just keep them and we enjoy them, and it's great. But if somebody puts you on a witness stand, for example, theoretically, I have a feeling that many of us would have a very hard time giving really good concrete reasons for why we should keep the hobby. And I do see that as a problem. And it's not a problem with the keepers. It's just a problem that I think because we don't have these conversations and we're not giving those tools to keepers and say, this is why you can be proud to be a reptile keeper. And this is why if someone says, hey, you shouldn't be a reptile keeper, you shouldn't own those snakes, you can say, no, these are the reasons that I think it's really important that I own snakes. And that's why having these conversations are so important, because we can make people start thinking that. And there could be a million different reasons why it's important. But if we don't actually think of them, and if they're not there for you to play that card when you absolutely need to, then it ends badly.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, there's times where like I could feel the energy in me. It's like, I know why, but it's really hard to put into words sometimes. And I just have to write it out over and over and over again, so it makes more sense for the general public.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, nothing may come of this time. That's the thing.
Doesn't mean that the WAP is going to try again later.
Or another organization. I mean, or another province. I mean,
they're
Right.
organized with each other, and they all got lots of funding. So they're going to try, and it's been proven that they've got people in forms of government in Ontario and other places too, and obviously in PEI, or else it wouldn't be pushed up to be put out there.
And
Yeah.
PEI is a very small province.
Yeah, and
Very-
like if they're picking on the little guys, eventually they're going to come picking on the big guys.
Well, they're picking on the little guy to test the waters and see what kind of response they get. That's literally all this is.
More or less, because why otherwise? What purpose did this bring? That's the only reason behind it. But in terms of our neighbors, the USARC, it's proof that being open about it, reptile side, that it's functional. We can actually change the course of how the laws are. We can teach the government, what is good, what is bad, what are some things they say that maybe it's true, but it's not to the extremist point they actually give,
Yeah, we just gotta get better at articulating all these finer points. We're driven predominantly by passion, but that's a double-edged sword. So, having the right articulation and with a group of people that could actually present the facts. The facts speak for themselves. It really does. Is like I said, it just comes down to ignorance. Once you bring the facts out there, it's really it's a no-go situation for this WAP. But it's about having that voice, constant voice, and being the louder voice, being that annoying person, being loud about it, and always. The one thing I love about reptile keepers is if you're a snake keeper, reptile keeper, you're gonna let someone else know that we're one. Hey, we are reptiles, and that's great because that's what we need. That passion needs to be louder than who we are because of these kind of forces that we have to deal with to try to, relay that ignorance, right?
But there's also that fine line of some people might go a little overboard. So it has to be what do you call it? A very respectable way of being loud about it, but professional too.
You don't want to be a CrossFitter.
Yeah, that passion can go, in the wrong very, very quickly.
Yeah, and usually the loudest groups are the ones that bring the most attention. So obviously these animal rights groups are being loud about what they want. So they're starting to get their way.
Yeah, because I know right now I have a lot of friends down in the States, and USARC is making a lot of noise down there. There's 4 things going on down in the States right now. New York's trying to ban shipping of any animals in and out using FedEx, USPS, UPS. Oregon's trying to pass a bill that you cannot use animals for educational shows, even though you're licensed. I actually had an educator from Oregon not long ago. There's no tegus in South Carolina, I think it is right now. They're trying to pass that. And then there's some going on in Florida, which I can't remember off the top of my head. And they fight for reptile keepers and their members down there. We don't have that here. I wish we did.
We can still. The fact that they even have this survey that we can somehow get the message across is still great, though. The U.S. is a lot. There's more going on all the time. It's a bigger market. It's a bigger hobby. So USARC can pretty much stay busy, so they can warrant that. The reason why we can never seem to keep a Canadian group going long enough, because like I said, sometimes there's a battle and sometimes no battle. Sometimes we're not doing anything. What are we doing with the funds? Then where is it going? People go like, oh, why do I have to contribute to you if there's nothing going on? And then all of a sudden it comes up and people say, oh my God, we wish we had that group. And there's always that inconsistency. But in the meantime, we still have this opportunity, even this podcast, spreading this information, social media, the surveys. There's still ways. We just got to find it. Even if we can't have one unified group, even if we have 6, so be it. It's just
whatever works in the end, right? It's the message across. Sweet.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm so adamant about supporting your local reptile societies if you have them. I am the current vice president of the Alberta Reptile Amphibian Society, and I'm trying to help with the bylaws here. I'm trying to do some stuff and reach out to other organizations for PEI. I'm trying to help across the board. So I want everybody to be able to keep reptiles and amphibians and whatever else you want, because I think that's important, so people have that connection with the wildlife and want to help with conservation and all that other aspects of what the hobby brings.
Yeah, like imagine the knowledge lost if something happened. Like, what do you even do? Even native species wise, people won't understand anymore. It's not just what we keep that's, exotic. Everyone's going to lose interest and won't understand the native roles they play here.
And that's what the anti-pet groups just don't understand, and they don't even want to contend with those ideas. As far as I can tell, they've never even tried to explore what are some of the benefits. But I know governments would see that and see the benefit in those sort of ideas. I mean, the universities pay for research that the hobby helps with. So it's hard to say that we aren't doing providing a positive service when the government is actually utilizing our service in some ways.
Yeah, it's just providing that information to the lawmakers and the people in power, because they're not actively seeking out this information unless it's brought to them because they have other pressing matters. So unless somebody's pushing up something that they want, that's usually where things start happening like this. So the animal rights groups are like, hey, this is what we want. Here's a bunch of money, and here's the information that we're presenting you.
I don't know how many people are signed in right now, but I wonder if we can't somehow link a phone number to the provincial government or whatever department that's dealing with this proposal. And
I have no idea. I know they're checking the questionnaire, and that's about it.
Very grassroots level. I mean, that still works. Just calling in, just being that annoying voice. I'm like, why are these people? Man, I guess there's a lot of people that give a damn about reptiles. I mean, just getting that out there, because, like I said, it's overwhelming for the layperson or the person who just has a couple snakes or whatever it is. It seems overwhelming, but it's not impossible to reach up. And the government does make it so that it's easy enough to actually have your voice heard. I mean, maybe not the information is right out there, but it doesn't take long for you to look it up, or even one person look it up and share the information to people. And the survey is great. And if we can, maybe even the 6 of us can take it on and actually get some more information to where we can get more people to just call in, or something simple as setting up a template email, running up something like that. Like it's not impossible. It's very, very it's a lot easier than we think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Some of the stuff that you can start with is contacting your MLAs for the province. You can start giving phone calls to Fish and Wildlife and stuff like that. That really helps too. Finding out more information, what the plan is, contacting the MLAs. That plays a big factor, because that's what we did here in Alberta, is hammered on all the MLAs within the province. Like, we have a big list, and that brought attention because everybody's aware of it now and they're hearing our voice. And once a bunch of people start making noise, they got to listen.
Yeah. Yep. And with that being said too, keep it clean. Don't swear. Don't curse.
Yes.
That is so important.
Be professional.
Be professional.
Yeah, you definitely have. If we as the community want to be taken seriously, we have to approach these organizations professionally and level-headed. And know your facts before you call.
I think it would be a good idea. Like, it'll take some time, but to actually physically write down the positives of the reptile hobby. Like what you're saying earlier, Dillon, if you're up on the stand, what do you say? You could have stage fright for a second. I think there should be a file somewhere for people to even look at, to learn, to understand what the hobby, what this industry actually does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of parts to it.
Yeah, things that people never understand, like the universities, for example. They'll be like, oh, I never thought of that before. It's something that people should know, that should be common knowledge. And the things, how it affects worldwide, here, us as a keeper, it could affect whatever's going on across the world too.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is.
And also reaching out to these government organizations when we have science-based facts and science backing us, that really helps. So here with the Dark Frog Ban, we had biologists reaching out to forms of government. So that makes a big difference, because somebody with a PhD or some form of higher education is viewed in a better light by the government than somebody who passed high school and just wants to keep snakes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's easy for all of us to imagine being somebody who wasn't part of the hobby and being mystified by why anybody would want to own reptiles. I could easily put myself in that shoes, be like, why would anybody want to own a snake? That just seems so ridiculous that you want to own all these things. But so that's actually quite relatable. So you can kind of imagine what it's like for those people. So that's just the approach that you want to take. You know that it's going to be mystifying to people, and then just provide them with the information that you think would sway them.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, you know, most likely nothing will come from this one experience, but how do we know the next one, something's not going to come from it?
Yeah. Like there's a lot of changes that are going on all across Canada, like here in Alberta, the 5 towns that are doing complete overhauls of animal welfare bylaws, and they're banning species that are legal within the province. And then I asked them, hey, do you guys know about the Wildlife Regulation Act that's put on by the Alberta government? And they say no. So that's pretty alarming for municipal lawmakers not being aware of the provincial laws that are already in place. So it might not just be a provincial level, it might be a municipal level that some of these laws come in place.
Yeah. But in something like the Maritimes, where we're smaller provinces, usually it's a whole provincial thing versus municipal.
Yeah. And with the size of Canada too, like we have 37 million people. So the exotics trade here is a little bit smaller. Yeah. So it's easier to target because there's not as much support as there would be in the States, because there's probably at least 35 million people in the States that probably keep reptiles.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave that there. So if anybody wants to take a look down in the description, I did add the link for the CBC article that was done. There's also a link to the questionnaire for PI. There is also questions about like cattle, agricultural side of things, like, you know, cows, horses, all that stuff.
I was kind of surprised by the questions on there.
Yeah, it threw me off. It really, I'm like, what? Some of the questions,
well,
but, you know,
there's a lot of large scale like farming operations that just don't do things ethically.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, and it's like we're saying though, you know, I can't answer for agriculture. I can't answer for farmers.
No, we're just one community that could be affected by this. Like, hopefully, you know, the farmers and the fish people and people that love the cute and fluffy exotic animals. Hopefully, they are all viewing this the exact same way we are, because, like, you know, people will take these ideas and run with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of farm animals that are considered exotic. It's not like a horse, cow, a pig, and like certain species of sheep. It's all considered exotic.
Yeah.
So that affects a huge industry for agriculture too. So that not necessarily only affects the pet trade.
Like I'm affected by the agriculture side because of my rabbits and my quail. So
yeah.
If I were to live there, you know, it would definitely be affecting more than one thing that I'm interested in.
Well, it even affects the general public, like agriculturally. What is food involved in that? More than likely, right?
Well, and like I think what a lot of people who read this article aren't going to realize is this affects their 6-year-old daughter's cute little hamster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or your 7-year-old daughter's pastel ball python.
Yeah, it's like they smuggle the hamsters in with like the creepy reptiles.
Oh, man.
and just hope that people don't notice, and because so many people don't really like reptiles, and they won't realize that rats, hamsters, gerbils, all those things.
Yeah.
All the reptile food is also involved in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was reading the article earlier, I don't know if they fixed it, but they were including arachnids as well.
Yeah, not surprising.
So I don't know if it was in the article or in the questionnaire, because I mean, the questionnaire went to like deeper, and groups of animals. So, I mean, there's another industry right there, arachnids.
Yep.
A whole other ball and chain, you know. So I think best bet, if everybody can, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's one community. I mean, the bigger provinces even have to help the little guys and vice versa.
Well, every person counts. Every person is a new voice heard, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure that in the questionnaire, they ask you if you're from PEI or not.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it asks if you're from PEI or elsewhere.
Yeah, elsewhere. So, I mean, as long as, and there's options to write some things in. I'm going to remind people, if you do the questionnaire and you want to write in your opinion, great. Keep it clean.
Oh, okay.
The survey link does not work anymore.
Yeah,
It worked for me.
Maybe it crashed because so many people are trying to write it in.
I mean, there's only 24 people watching. I mean, if it crashed from 24 people
PEI
watching,
server. They probably only handle like 10 people at a time.
Well, it works for me still. So,
I do want to point out for all the registered businesses and stuff in PEI and the Maritimes, talk to PJAC, so the Pet Industry Joint Council. So I'm pretty sure they're aware of this. I've made phone calls to them about stuff going on here in Alberta, and I'm trying to find out more information about what's going on in PEI. So waiting on.
Oh, snap.
So I think that'll be important to get a hold of too, because they're for the whole pet industry across Canada.
Are you serious?
The survey's down?
This has been moved or deactivated by the server owner.
Weird. I refresh it and it pops up still. But it's been refreshing. Let's see.
Like, yeah, it's been.
I probably didn't expect.
No, I still have it.
Weird.
Maybe we've just been blocked.
Brandon, does PJAC do Canadian animals as well, or Canadian bylaws as well? I thought they were just American.
No, PJAC is for Canada, so it's the Pet Industry Joint Council of Canada. So
I'm gonna try the link elsewhere. Excuse me, why I've got my phone on a live. I'm very professional right now.
It
Carry
doesn't work on my phone, but it works on my laptop.
PJAC has helped Alberta with the dart frog ban. They help a lot of other businesses and stuff like that, because this affects a lot of people. It's not just pet owners. So,
yeah.
I mean, we have a very awesome and prominent feeder company here, or in PEI, and they actually deliver not just to PEI, they deliver to New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. They deliver twice a month to each province. So something like that, you know, no exotics, like rodents are lumped in there. That could affect, you know, breeders in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, who rely on them for food. So
yeah, it affects a lot of people. So if people could reach out to PJAC, leave some phone calls or emails, that'll also get the ball rolling and prioritize this too. But they also have a lot of stuff going on. Like last time I talked to them, they were dealing with some of the proposed bylaws that the city of Calgary was proposing. So they're doing also animal welfare.
Very good people.
The survey is still up. I think you just have to use it.
okay, and it
Yeah,
might
it's
be
working on my
too because
computer.
I know they're locking it so you can only answer it once.
This is what I'm seeing, though. It says that because I've already given them a response, I can't take the survey again.
Yeah.
See, I got that message on my phone, but I just opened it on my computer and it's letting me do the question.
It probably was my device.
I'm gonna try something here. I got my
So
computer.
I think the survey is up for the people that have not filled it out yet.
Yeah. We're all trying things here. Let's be magical.
But yeah, like PJAC is probably one of the better groups that can help deal with this, because we don't have a US SARC or anything like that. So PJAC is probably going to be one of the better groups to support for this. You can go to their website; they offer memberships and stuff like that too. So
yeah, I've been in contact with them several times before, and they're always very kind, very useful, and they're always wanting to hear new information too that they might have not heard.
Yeah, like I brought up the bylaws that I've been starting off here, and they're like, we didn't know about that. So, and then I sent them all the information that I've sent and stuff like that, because I've made so many phone calls to the municipalities and emails and writing things up and trying to get the ball rolling to try to change some of these things or see what we can do about it.
Yeah. I'm just looking here at all the different links.
Well, I'm gonna have to take a leave here, guys. I gotta get back.
Yeah.
Thanks to
I
you.
have to
Thank
get
you, guys.
children to bed too. So, any closing thoughts on this, guys? Maybe we'll wrap this up because Ashley, I know you have plans as well.
Got a half hour still. Don't matter to me.
Yeah. Message PJAC, message your MLAs, tell them your thoughts, be courteous, be professional.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big factor.
Share. Even if you don't want to be the voice, share it. Maybe someone else will.
Yeah,
exactly.
Spread the word, even if you say nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, I just dropped another one. I'm going to fix it also in here. You guys keep talking while I fix things. This is soups professional. But yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say, just come up with a well-defined reason for why it's important that you keep reptiles and have that in your back pocket at all times. And if anyone needs help laying that out, I'm happy to. I've written that out a lot of times, kind of like Ashley. You know, it's one of those things that once in a while it's good to write that out. So if anyone needs help, just shoot me a message and have that ready, because that's what we need as keepers.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm totally gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
we can use that original post that they kind of had and kind of have rebuttals for some of the information that they are providing against us.
Yeah.
I did find the updated link. There's a new one apparently, which was different from the original one I had. So yeah, I dropped it there in the thing. I will update it into the description too once I'm off this, because apparently I can't update it right now. Yeah, definitely share. I mean, even if you're not Canadian, because I know some of the people who watch me and are friends with me are American. Do it the questionnaire. It takes not even 5 minutes. It's really fast.
Cool. Well, I'm out, you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, bye, man.
You guys are all amazing for even doing this. So we will meet again.
Yeah, thanks for helping.
Anytime.
We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
I know my homework tonight will be writing out why the reptile industry is important, and I'll definitely be making that more public so people could take that and add to it too.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm bad with words.
Same here.
I'll be reaching out to the Alberta Reptile Amphibian Society and seeing what we can do as a group. I've been, again, starting to make phone calls and reaching out to organizations and trying to figure out what we can do on our end to at least help.
Yeah. Because I think it's just knowledge at this point. Just trying to get it heard that, we have numbers too.
Yeah.
Let our voice be heard. Because like I said, it may not go through. There may be no danger of it going through. But the thing is, how do we know?
Yeah.
Well,
for
better
sure.
try than not, right?
Yeah, I'd rather put in the effort and it not be needed in the end. But if we don't put in the effort and it's needed, we're only going to be suffering. Because look at BC in 2007, I think it was. There was 5 people advocating for the hobby there. The rest of the province didn't do anything. And
Look what happened.
yeah, it's not on those 5 people's fault. They tried their best. It's everybody else's fault for not doing anything about it.
Yeah. I will ask, and this was the first time I asked people to do this, hit the like button, share this, because it's not just my voice here. It's all of our voices. I hate asking people to share stuff. I really do.
But this is
Go
so
share it.
important, though. This
Go
is
share it.
so important.
Yeah, go share. It's not just about me.
I actually have your people sharing it right now. So there you go.
Now I've hit Europe.
Yeah, like when we posted this to the CHP page, it got a lot of response. So that was good to see that people are paying attention.
Yeah.
See,
So
there you go.
Awesome.
Look, I'm getting shared in Europe. I feel fancy now. No, thank you guys for coming on last minute. I know this was very hastily planned out. Literally, I messaged Brandon and Keanna this afternoon and was like, do you guys want to do an Instagram live later? Let's talk about this. And then it turned into this.
yeah, you can't really do much with me and Brandon.
And it's like I said, it's nice, and it's not exactly my province, but the Maritimes are small.
Yeah.
And if one's going to do something then the next province is going to, and then
it's
the
going
next
to
province.
cascade everywhere.
Yeah, like we stated, it might not affect you right away, but it affects those people there, and then it could cross over. So
Yeah,
it can
and
spread like wildfire.
Yeah, it could. And I mean, I just moved. I don't want to move again because I can't have my animals. I would move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everywhere.
I mean, I can drive to 20 minutes the other side of town and there's Quebec. So, I mean, I wouldn't have to move far, but I don't want to pack. Thanks for everybody coming, hanging out, even if you aren't American or not American. Oh my God, Canadian. I'm tired. Please fill out the survey. Give the article a read. Again, we don't know if it's going to pass or not. It may not. Nothing may come of this. Do you really want to take that risk? I don't.
Nope.
I really don't. So just make our voices heard. Thanks for everybody coming on last minute. I appreciate it. Everybody share this afterwards. So I thank you guys for coming out, and it's been a good one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.